Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Today's daf is daf Chaf Beis. And we start from 4 lines from the bottom, daf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis. Gufa, Amar Rabbi Yoel Bar Chanina Kol Kiyar She'ein B'Kedei L'Kadosh Arba Kahanim Mimenoi. Any kiyar that doesn't have enough water in it to be Mekadosh for Kahanim, Ein Mekachin Boy. You can't do Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim from that kiyar. Shnei V'Rochatzu Mimena Moshe is 1, V'Aaron is 2, Ubanav is another plural, which is another 2. Total 4. Basically, if you Gemara, Kol HaKelim Mekachin Bein Sheyesh Behen Revius and Bein She'ein Behen Revius, right? Which means that you can be Mekadosh Yadayim V'Raglayim even from Mayim that isn't Machzik, doesn't hold a Revius. Obavad, the only condition that has to be met is Sheyeh Kli Sharos. Kli Sharos, it should be Kli Sharos. So l'chayra, you just said it needs 4 kahanim, and here it says it doesn't even need a revius. Here we're talking about the etzem, the kiyar has enough water to be mekadosh 4 kahanim. But this guy, what he did was, he drilled a hole into the kiyar, and now he has a pipe from the kiyar that comes out into a little bowl of a klisharis, and that holds less than a revius. So for that, even though that bowl is not holding a revius even, it's still kosher to be mekadosh from it because it's connected to the kiyar that holds enough water for 4 kahanim. The Gemara asks, 1 second, how can you be mekadosh yadayim v'raglayim from a keli kolshu that's connected through a pipe to the wall of the kiyar where there's a hole in it? Well, rachatzu mimenu amar Chachmana state that you have to wash from the kiyar itself, not from something sticking out of the kiyar in a klisharis. The Gemara says Yerchatzu l'rabbis klisharis. No, Yerchatzu is marba klisharis. So you could have klisharis. Yochi klichoil nami. If you have a riboy, so why not eat a klichoil? No, you can't do it from klichoil. Mikavachayim mikanoi, from the base. If the kan of the base that was nimshach together with the kiyar, if you filled the base with water, you're not allowed to be mekadesh from the kan, from the base. Klichol certainly that wasn't nimshach with the kiyar, you can't be mekadesh from it. How do I know that the kan is possible for kiddush and avrik? Why isn't the base mekadesh just like the kiyar is mekadesh? Which means it says nechoshes twice by the kiyar and the kan. And nechoshes is only makish the kiyar and the kan with regard to the halacha that has to be made from the choshes, but not with regard to the halacha of being mekadosh from the kan. There could be a good reason why by the base you're not allowed to be mekadosh from it. You know why? Because the kli, right, the inside where it holds the water, or it could hold the water, is not meant for that. So that's why perhaps if you put water in it and you try to make a kaddish dam reglaim from it, it's not going to work. But a klichoil, the inside of a klichoil is meant to hold whatever you put inside of it. So maybe it would be good. Ela mimenu lemiuta klichoil. So you have the word mimenu that's mamayit. So your chotzu is coming to be marba klisharis, and mimenu is coming to be mamayit klichoil. Mar says, 1 second. If it's mamayit, mimenu is a miyat. Yochik klisharis nami. Rabbi Rachmana rechatzu. Yeah. So you have the miyat to teach you klichoil and the riboy to teach you klisharis. And where's a mari isa? Why are you darshaning? You're choosing to darshan from mimenu a miyat of klichoil. Why takazoin your chotzes marba klisharis? Say the other way around. Zeh ton mishicha kamayu. Zeh ein ton mishicha kamayu. Yeah, there's a common denominator between klisharis and the kiyar, which they both need mishicha, and therefore, if you're mekadesh from the klisharis, it's also good just like the kiyar. Omer shlokish kol hamashlim lemei mikvah mashlim lemei kiyar, but lerevius einay mashlim. So revius you need for netilas yadayim, right? Anytime you have to wash netilas yadayim, you need a revius. So a mikvah needs our bamsa, right? It's a whole different process of tahara. So whatever is mashlim lemei mikvah, which hashlomis lemei mikvah is mentioned in a Mishnah. Mikvah is, we're talking about snow, right? We're talking about all different types of mud and melach, whatever the Mishnah mentions over there. So whatever is mashlim, the mikvah for arbaim sa'ah, can also be mashlim cannot be mashlim, for a revius. So that's Rish Lakish's member. Amar Rish Lakish, kol mashlim l'mei mikvah, mashlim l'meikir, can be mashlim for the meikir, that if you add, right, the amount for a meikir is enough mayim to be mekadesh arba kahanim. The amount for a mikvah is arba so the amount for netilas yadayim is revius. So there's a whole list in the Mishnah Mikvah is mentioning what you could be mashlim the may mikvah with, what you could use to complete the 40 sa'ah of a mikvah. So that would also work to complete the shear of arba kahanim being mekadesh dam reglayim by a kiyar. But it will not work to be mashlim the tzayrich for netilas yadayim, which is revius. The Gemara says like this. Lamutamai. So there's a whole list in the Mishnah Mikvah what you could use to be mashlim the arba'im sa'ah. So the Gemara wants to know which item on that list doesn't work for netilas yadayim. If you want to tell me that you're excluding the item on the list of Mikvahs which is mashlim for arba'im sa'ah, but it won't be mashlim for the revius of netilas yadayim, which item is that? The item of titanirek, which means a mud that has a very liquidy consistency, heichadami. If it's mamish so liquidy that when a para bends down, it could drink from it, I feel revius nami. It should also be mashlim for revius because that's liquid. The ain para sheicha v'sheisim, I feel a mikvah nami ain mashlim. It shouldn't even work for a mikvah. Elamutu yavchushin adumin. Afilu, where it says, yavchushin adumin. What is yavchushin adumin? That's like very small mosquitoes or flies, gnats that don't have wings, and they were born from the water. Okay, so that you could use to be mashlim a mikvah and the kir, but not a revius. The Gemara says, what do you mean? Afilu be'inayu. Nami. What do you mean a mikvah? It's not just mashlim a mikvah. If the whole mikvah is made of yavchushin adumin, it's also good. So here we're talking about the lashon of mashlimim. So it can't be referring to yavchushin adumin. Gemara says, how do I know that yavchushin adumin is be'inayu, even if it's be'inayu, the whole mikvah is made of it, it can also be kosher. The time since it's born from the water, you can be matbil in a mikvah that's completely made of the yavchushin adumin. And so too, the water from the fish's eye, right? A person, let's say, is just a fish's eye, is so big, you can be toivel in it, in the hole of the eye of a fish. You can. Yeah, it's good. You're allowed to be toivlin because that's the natural state of it. Okay, Amar Fapalamiut to Nasan Sa'o, Venatal Sa'o. You know where Shlok can be Mamayit? What works to be mashlam a mikvah and the kir, but it doesn't work to be mashlam a revius. We're talking about a case where you had a complete shear and Venatal Sa'o, and you took out a Sa'o. Mikvah sheyesh b'arbam Sa'o mechuvanas. You had exactly 40 sa'ah, which is the shear of the mikvah. Nasan sa'ah. Now you put in a sa'ah of some other liquid, which is pasul, v'natal sa'ah. And now you took out a sa'ah which is mixed in with water, because once you put liquid into sa'ah, one second, I just noticed that the mic isn't working here. Amrav Papa in Kodach Boy Revius Matbilam Boy Mechatan Tatzner Hol Mechsher de Mikvah. The Gemara says that the Revius that we said is different than Mekir and May Mikvah, where you can't just take a Revius after you poured a Revius of May Paris, or you can't take it a little bit, right? That's only if the Revius stood on its own. But if you took a Revius out of the Mikvah, which prior to that you poured May Paris, and now you're taking a Revius out of that mix, that's okay. It could be toivel machat metzanori is these small forks, which is enough to be toivel and a revius. It's kosher. Okay, I'm Rabbi Yoel Shlakash. May mikvah ksherim will make kiyah. You can take the kiyah and dip it into a mikvah and take water like that. Remember the mayim chayim and then afraid gemara. So I mean, it's not mayim. You don't need mayim chayim for a kiyah. Mayim that flows directly from a mayim. Vatanya, stayed by the kerev and kra'ayim of a carbon oil where you have to wash it in water. But mayim v'le b'yayin, but mayim v'le b'mazog. You can't wash it in wine. You can't wash it in wine that was diluted with water either. Mayim l'rabbi shar mayim. Only mayim, and it can be any type of water, even may mikvah, which is not mayim chayim. The kavachomer l'meikir, and avadi can use the meikir. The Gemara says, "My kavachomer l'meikir." What does it mean kavachomer? Why is meikir even more pasha that you can use for the karavan karayim? Lav the mayim chayim ninu. Don't you think because that's mayim chayim is even better water? Because for the kir you need mayim chayim. Gemara says no, loy the kaddish. It's because it's holy. It has holiness because it was into in a klisharis. Gemara kedisha mal yusahi. What do you mean? The fact that it's holy has a malyusa when it comes to washing the oila, the caravan krayim. V'atan debei Shmuel mayim she'en lem shem levai. When you're talking about mayim that doesn't have a shem levai, mayim means there's no shem levai. Yotzu mekir sheyesh lem shem levai. It has a shem levai, and that is not kosher to wash the caravan krayim with because it's not mayim stam. It's not mayim without a shem levai, without another name attached to it. So because it's called mekir, it's not called mayim. Elulav the re'uyin lemekir. So it must be when the Brisa says that it's re'uyin lemekir, it means al mayim chaim nenu. So in other words, the brisa can't be machshir mekir itself. That's what it seems like. The brisa can't be machshir mekir itself because mekir would be puzzle. It's a shem levai. It's called mekir. It's not called mayim. So what does the brisa mean when it says kavachomer lemekir? It means kavachomer for the mayim that are uyin lemekir, which is mayim chayim, and that's not like Rish Lakish. That's the shaila. It's kasher Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish says you can use mei mikvah. Gemara says you're right. Tanoi. It's a machlokes tanoi. Rabbi Yoel mekir, Rabbi Shmuel mei mayin, and chomer shar mei mesen. Machlokes Tanoim, whether you could use mei mikvah or you need tafka mei mayin for the mekir. Okay, so daily Gemara weiter. Orul menolon. How do I know that orul is possible for the avoida menolon? Omer chizda v'zeh b'toysim meisher rabbeinu lamad loy lamadnu. We didn't learn it in Chamisha Chamisha Torah. Medivri Yecheskel ben Buzi lamadnu. We learned it in the pasuk in Yecheskel. Kol ben necher erel lei ve'erel basar liyav l'mikdashi. You can't have a ben necher erel leiv erel basar doing the avoida. So the Gemara says, how do we know that they're mechal the avoida if they do the avoida? The chsiv v'yachmas ben necher erel leiv erel basar liz mikdash lechal es beisi. Okay, so that's clearly lechal es beisi. Talmud about a ben necher yochel ben necher mamish means mamish agoy. Talmud loimer erel leiv. It doesn't mean mamish agoy. It's talking about a kohen that is like a ben necher. Yeah, he's not fully. Not fully a believer, right? Is a nachri. So why say ben necher if it says already erel leiv? His ma'isa became strange, different from the Torah la'oviv shebashamayim. The only erel leiv, erel basar, and sometimes the bris milah. How do I know it's possible? Avoid is mechal the avoid the tamad loymar the erel basar. Tzrich nikas rachman erel basar shem demois. Yeah, mamish has a psalm the guf alein. And somebody doesn't have a bris milah, he has an arla, it's mois. Avol erel leiv loy mois, but erel leiv that's not mois, ein loy. I would say it's not possible for the avoid this. So kamash malah and also erel leiv. Yesh min erel leiv mishum the ein liba l'shamayim. Avol erel basar liba l'shamayim ein loy tzricha. Very interesting. So you can have an erel basar, which is really liboy lashamayim. So if he's liboy lashamayim, so why isn't it erel basar? Why isn't he getting a bris milah if it's liboy lashamayim? So Rashi says, the reason why he's not getting a bris milah, even though it's liboy lashamayim, is because his brothers died machmas milah and he has a ptur. Tosfos says something else. Tosfos says, "Ben tamafarish the mutter la'arelis, the mummer la'arelis. He's a mummer la'arelis." He's only doing it because he's worried about the tsar of the milah. He's scared. So in other words, if you're scared because of the pain of a mitzvah, yeah, he's called a mummer la'arelis, but he's also called liba l'shamayim. He can be called a mummer and liba l'shamayim at the same time. It's unbelievable. He can be mamish a mummer and liba l'shamayim. It's incredible. Okay. Okay, so we're more about the Tomei puzzle. I don't know Tomei's puzzle. So the Gemara says, Amru ziknei darim. Okay, here we have to concentrate a bit. Let's see. Amru ziknei darim. Ziknei darim came along and they Their mamash, the Ziknei Darim, were known as Chachamim. Gedolim over here he brings down to the bottom, and they lived in the Ir Lud in the south of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, Ziknei Darim. They said like this, when they darshaned this halacha of Tameh, a kohen that's Tameh is posel la'avoida, he's mechal li'avoida, they said, lo yishon el kohen ela Tameh sheretz, only if he's a Tameh sheretz, he touched the sheretz. Avol Tameh meis, b'tech shemeratza b'tzibur meratza navi v'yachid. The Tameh meis, since he's meratza b'tzibur, so when he's meratza b'tzibur, so Rashi says, that there's a whole parsha of Tumah Hutra B'tzibur, right, by Pesach, Karban Pesach. So, right, a Yochid that's Nitma has to push it off to Pesach Sheni. But a Tzibur that's Nitma, they can be Makar of the Karban Pesach, because it's B'moyadoi, and even B'tumah. So, at this point, we're saying that the Kohen who's Tameh, or the Tzibur that's Tameh, can be Makar of B'tumah. So the Gemara says, when the Torah is allowing a tzibur to be makar of the Karban Pesach, if they're tamei, it includes a kohen that's tamei as well. Meratza nami b'yachid. So the Gemara asks, "Iyachi tamei sheretz nami leisi v'kal v'chaymer." Tamei sheretz should also be learned from a kal v'chaymer mitamei meis. Oh, ma tamei meis, which is a tumah chamura. Shetona is ashlishi shvi. Meratza. That's meratza b'karban tzibur, and you're allowed to do that by lekatchila if most of the tzibur is tamei. Tamei sheretz, and the is azar shlishi shvi. It's a much lighter tumah. Einoi din shemeratza avad that's meratza. So why do the Ziknei Darim hold that tumas meis is meratza b'tzibur lekatchila, but not tumas sheretz? That's the shaila. In other words, once we say that tumas meis is meratza b'tzibur lekatchila, tamei sheretz should also be meratza b'tzibur lekatchila. Now, you might ask, okay, so if they both work, Tumas Meis and Tumas Sheretz, so where would the halach of the Mishnah be true? Right? So if Tumah Hutra B'tzibur, Bein B'Tumas Meis, Bein B'Tumas Sheretz, which means it includes a kohen that's Tameh as well. So when the Mishnah says Tameh Pasel, so who's the Tameh? What case of Tameh? A kohen Tameh, what case would it be Pasel? The Avodah. So there it says, it could be Tumas Ziva, Tumas Tzeras, right? It could be other stuff as well. Shita Mekubet says, it could be other stuff as well. It doesn't have to be Tumas Sheretz or Tumas Meis. Why would the Ziknei Darim be mechalik between Tumas Sheretz and Tumas Meis? If I have a Kal V'chaymer, to be marbi even Tumas Sheretz from Tumas Meis is Tumah Chamura. The Gemara says, no, Ksavi Ziknei Darim mechaprin, kemiskaprin. The Kahanim who can bring the kapara with their avodah can only be compared to the Meskaprin, the Yisraelim, who are Meskaper by the Avodah. Ma Meskaprin. Tamei Meis and Tamei Sheretz Loi. When the Reiv Tzibur is Tamei, it can only be with Tumas Meis that the Torah is matir to bring a carbon for the Tzibur. B'Tumah. Right? Tamei Sheretz Loi. But about the Tumas Sheretz not. Right? It's not including Tumas Sheretz. So Rashi explains this. When the Torah was matir b'tzibur, Tumah, the Torah was matir the kohen and the tzibur, right? Even the kohen that's tummy, he's part of the tzibur, so he's also mutter, because you learn it from moyadoi. It has to be mamish the moyadoi. So the kohen is like the tzibur. In other words, just like it's hutra for the Meskaprin, it's hutra for the Mechaprin also, for the Mechaprin, which are the Kahanim. But not Tumah Sheretz. The Torah was not Marba, Tumah Sheretz. Not sure, I'm not clear why the Ziknei Darim would be mechalik between Tumas Sheretz and Tumas Meis.